A very good morning to all of you. Today is our last day of this course, and we have successfully completed this course, and we are very happy that all of the participants have successfully appeared in the final examination also, and have scored very good grades also. And today is our valedictory session. Today we have our Vice Principal, Ma'am, Madhurima Hajarika, Ma'am. We have our convener, Dr. Gayatri Sharma, Ma'am. We have our IQAC coordinator, Ma'am, Dr. Puri Kilodari, Ma'am. And also today, as our resource person, we have Professor Rakhee Kalita Moral, Ma'am. And without any delay, we'll start the valedictory session. And now, our Vice Principal, Ma'am, will address the participants. Ma'am, over to you.
So first and foremost, a very good morning to one and all present, especially the resource person of today's valedictory function, Professor Rakhee Kalita Moral, the organizers of the IKS certificate course. I thank them all for successfully completing this course and for coordinating with all the resource persons who have contributed immensely for the success of this course. I'm sure it must have been a very good learning experience, and we all know the importance of IKS, and the NEP 2020 has laid much importance on this, and the IKS aims to carry forward the wisdom that has been passed down through generations to us and apply ancient Indian wisdom to solve contemporary problems. I'm sure this certificate course must have been a great learning experience for all the participants, and I once again thank them all for successfully completing this course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now we have IQAC coordinator, Dr. Puri Kilodari, ma'am. I'd like to request ma'am to have a few words to our participants.
Thank you, Zintu Thakuria. A very good morning to all of you present here, especially to Vice Principal Ma'am and today's guest of honor and resource person, Dr. Professor Rakhee Kalita Moral Ma'am. When 2 months back, we decided to launch the program of the certificate course, we could not visualize that it would be such a wonderful learning experience for all of us. We are grateful to our resource persons and the participants who have joined from different parts of the state as well as the country. Because with their enthusiasm and sincerity only, this program could become a greatly interactive academic exercise. The course covered a large number of topics from Vedic knowledge to oral traditions, from research prospects on Indian knowledge system to some local issues like Ahom architecture. At the same time, a large number of pertinent topics like ethnobotany, deciphering rare inscriptions and manuscripts, Vedic mathematics, and many more remain to be done due to the paucity of time and our resource persons' engagement, urgent engagement elsewhere. Even then, we hope that in the near future, we'll be able to cover all the issues in some other certificate courses or through some other academic platforms. In fact, the Center for Indian Knowledge System is planning to hold an international seminar in the month of October and November this year, and preparation is already underway. We are looking forward to your active participation as paper presenters. And we are also planning to bring out e-journals on Indian knowledge system with the aim of creating a platform for critical thinking in this field. Your active support and as contributors of quality research papers will be welcome in this regard. Amongst the students, we have already circulated a notice asking for research proposals on Indian knowledge system, which will be funded by the Center for Indian Knowledge System. We do hope that our students will come forward to explore the interesting world of indigenous and local knowledges, especially orality and ancestral wisdom. We are very grateful to all the resource persons who have made the course a tremendous success. We are getting very encouraging feedback from our participants. So at the end, I again congratulate to the participants and thanks to all the participants and resource persons. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Our resource person, Professor Rakhee Kalita Moral, ma'am, have joined among us. First of all, let me introduce her to all of you. Professor Rakhee Kalita Moral, ma'am. She is serving as a professor in the Department of English and head of Center for Women's Studies in Cotton University, Guwahati. She has completed her PhD in American literature on the poetry of T.S. Eliot from Guwahati University, and she has been a post fellow in Center for Contemporary Studies at Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, New Delhi. She has been also the visiting faculty in Center for Study of Social System, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and she has been the project expert in RUSA Research Initiative on memories, cultures, movements, women's oral histories of Northeast India in a collaborative study with the School of Women's Studies of Jadavpur University. She has authored books including Under the Shadow of the Red Sun, Women Rebels, Gender in India is Noted, published by Routledge. She has also single-authored the book Once Upon the Hills, Naga Women's Everyday Practices and Values, Feminist Handbook, published by Heritage Publishing House. She has edited many volumes, including Gender and Society in Northeast India, At the Frontier and Beyond, Literature and Its Relations, and also the Cotton College Centenary volume. She has published many articles in many reputed national and international journals. She has been invited as resource persons to many seminars and invited lectures. So I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of Center for Indian Knowledge System, Handique Girls College, and you can start with your valedictory lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you and good morning, Handique Girls College, with your Center for Indian Knowledge Systems, your faculty, the Vice Principal present here at the valedictory session, and the coordinator of the Center for IQAC, along with the convener of this program and the certificate course. Let me first convey and place on record my gratitude, and I am indeed very happy to be here. I can see a huge presence, more than 170 participants, including faculty. So I'm sure this has been a very successful certificate program, considering that in this part of the country, this could be among the earliest of such courses, or perhaps one of the first of the programs being undertaken by a college, by a higher education institution. And also the fact that over the last 2 weeks, you may have already gone through several IKS strands of several IKS pedagogy of how IKS is taught or will be taught at the higher levels, higher education institutions. Also, why is IKS relevant? What are the knowledge systems that we can absorb into our contemporary modern cultures and academic systems? So I think, since this is a valedictory session, I did not have a very technical theme. I kept it simple, but I think it would sum up what you seem to have actually culled from the last 2 weeks. And I'm calling this small lecture Learning from the Past, Knowledge, Tradition, and Wisdoms. And I think I have a small presentation, but I will also speak alongside. And could I, Jintu, could I have could you please share my slides?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think we can have the first slide. I call it Learning from the Past, Knowledge, Tradition, and Wisdoms. So essentially, you could please take me down to the second slide. That is the first of the content slides. This is, of course, the cover that you can see. I would like you to move down to the second slide, please. Yes. So we are talking here about the great Indian tradition, because I am insisting, or I would like to focus on the fact that this Indian knowledge system is something that goes back to a hoary past. We go back essentially to a very old system of knowledge and wisdoms. And this great Indian tradition, which has been called the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. So obviously the Indian knowledge system in Hindi and in Sanskrit, the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, is of course by itself a vast body of world's discourses, knowledge systems that is now integrated into our modern information science and our everyday worlds. So by bringing together and integrating this network of discourses, we have been able to not only make our educational model more dynamic, but it has been possible to bring in a lot of information to our everyday world, to how we use, apply, and believe in a particular kind of approach to education. But all of this actually taken from the past and connecting back to ancient Indian traditions and bringing them into our classrooms. So what is understood by the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara has three components, as is available in this graphic diagram there. So you can see the visual, and we are talking about jnana, which is knowledge. We are talking about vigyan, which is science, and we're talking jivan darshan, which is philosophy. So having a philosophy of life. All of these have evolved, as you have understood over the last few weeks of your course. All of this has evolved from a very dynamic interplay. There has been an interplay of knowledge, of observation, of investigation, and rigorous analysis. So one of the things that we seem to understand from what is it that we get from the great Bharatiya Parampara. In fact, scientists of the world, and especially no less than a personality like Albert Einstein, had commented that we owe a lot to Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made. So, getting us back to our ancient knowledge system of numbers, of mathematics, which has been such a rich body of knowledge from the PPT is not visible. Is it not visible? I thought Jintu Thakuria is presenting from his end. Is the PPT visible?
It is visible, ma'am.
Okay, somebody has said not visible, so I think there must be a problem of network for those who. Oh, not visible.
It is visible, ma'am.
Okay, but I can see in the chat box not visible. Can you resolve that? But in any case, I hope that at least many of you can see it. Or from the center, it is visible. Is it not going out? Can you just check once? So essentially, I will carry on. Essentially, the what is understood by this great Bharatiya Parampara is the fact that you have drishti, very importantly, the idea of drishti, which itself is, a perspective. Drishti gives us, see, it is a very loaded term. When we say drishti is first of all sight, that is insight, but drishti also gives you a perspective. It also gives you an approach. It also gives you an access to this huge knowledge system that has been made available through this unique and, revitalized Indian knowledge system into our academic worlds. And this has made our education much more valuable. So we have now a value addition to what we already know and what we typically learn in the classroom. So this drishti is one component. The second is the parampara itself of the great Bharatiya Parampara. The parampara is a continuous knowledge system. It is a tradition of Bharat since time immemorial. You know, this knowledge system which rolls and which endures. The great parampara of our ancient knowledge treatises, of our ancient classics, the traditions that have been handed down not merely through books and through the classics that you read as texts, but the parampara, which is also a way of life. And I think, one must learn to broaden one's vision. The drishti that we have needs itself to be widened, to be broadened, to be made more inclusive, in order to be able to absorb the continuous knowledge traditions that have been laid down, that have been offered by India since our long past. And finally, in that triad of the Bharatiya Parampara, which includes the drishti itself, which includes a parampara, we also have a lokikya prayognya. So the prayogya is when we apply this knowledge to the kind of problems that we need to solve and the current educational, pedagogic, research related, and other scholastic and academic engagements, the Lokikya Prayogya, which is the practical utility. What is it that we tend to get? How is it that we have a hands-on knowledge of these Indian systems? This is what the great Bharatiya Parampara serves to offer to the student, to the researcher, to the academic, to the philosopher, to the scientist, to anyone who wishes to get involved and who wishes to engage with the IKS method. So IKS, by virtue of the NEP 2020, I think the Indian higher education models have been revitalized by the entry of, or the re-entry, I must say, of IKS, because the knowledge system has always been there. It is not as if it is a new system. As you will understand as I take you forward in the next few minutes, you will see that these are systems of knowledge. These were available resources that have been with us for a very long time. What is being done now is that one is beginning to recognize what this perspective, what this darshan, what this drishti, and what this parampara is. And while we have become modern, quote unquote, and we have begun to, as I said it the other day, when your book was launched, that we have been for a very long time handed down Western epistemologies, of course, without which our education system or our educational horizons do not expand. But at the same time, it had become emergent, it had become very, very important to not forget, to not sever ourselves from the past, which is why the Indian perspective becomes therefore very, very important. Slide 3, please. So what is the Indian perspective? Are you being able to see the third slide? What is an Indian perspective? Can you see the third slide, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So what is this Indian perspective? The Indian perspective, which is drawn, of course, from the Indian knowledge systems, represents this very holistic, ancient wisdom and tradition, which encompasses knowledge, science, and the philosophy of life, which we just talked about. That is Drishti, Parampara, and Lokikya, Prayogya. So the fact is that we can do Prayogya, that we can actually use this knowledge system to our advantage. So it has been a very continuous, unbroken tradition passed down through generations. And I have already mentioned that we talked about Gyan, the Bharatiya Drishti, the unique perspective, embraces knowledge, which is Gyan, Vigyan, which is science, and Jivan Darshan, which is the philosophy of life. So please take me to the fourth slide. The fourth slide actually now begins to question, but why do we need IKS in the present time? What will IKS serve in the present modern digital era of knowledge and higher education, or academic research and invention? Now, it's very important to again reiterate the foundation of Indian knowledge systems lies in this very rich and very interwoven, very, very entrenched tapestry of culture on the one hand, philosophy, but also spirituality evolving over the millennia. So the thousands of years that we have already lived, and we have actually borrowed, and we have absorbed our cultures from, these are built on a culture, a very rich system of culture, philosophical ideas, very, very deep philosophical perspectives, spirituality, which has always been related with our Indianness and our idea of the great Indian knowledge system. And to this, I think we have a set of components. What are the essential set of components that we can talk about? And these components of the system continue to remain extremely relevant. So the first of these, or the one major component of these, is related to well-being. Today, well-being has become again a very inclusive word. Well-being is not just our health, is not just our physical well-being, but well-being now has gone on to include your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and it is a traditional Indian system of science that brings this very, very inclusive idea of well-being into a very holistic approach to our daily lives, our modern, our contemporary lives. So well-being is connected to the knowledge of Ayurveda. Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medical system that allows, again, a very holistic approach to life, is drawn from understanding our own connections and our own relatedness to our environment. So Ayurveda is no longer just left to ancient practitioners who go looking for Ayurveda ingredients in the woods, in the forests, in the hills, or in the earth, looking for certain materials in the soil. But Ayurveda actually now embraces a very large dimension of well-being, which is related to how our life on the planet must be dictated by our interdependence on, human, non-human worlds. So the fact that the Ayurveda system is not to be seen, in a unidimensional way, looking at it as only medical science. No, Ayurveda actually embraces various planks and various degrees of well-being in its manifold, in its multidimensional aspects, and therefore it also turns our gaze back to what the environment tells us, what our ideas of conservation and preservation also rekindle, awaken in us, because Ayurveda will not exist if you do not know your natural ecologies, if you do not know the plants around you, if you do not know the forests, if you cannot identify the trees, if you cannot go deep into the mountains or high up to the mountains and figure out those very, very unique and rare ferns, rare plants that are not seen and are not available in our immediate surroundings. So Ayurveda has become not only an agency for well-being, Ayurveda has led us to a more beautifully integrated system of environmental and ecological knowledge. So I think this is the way IKS can be validated, can be rejuvenated and justified as relevant in present modes of education. Stress management in the present world systems of life anywhere, whether we're talking about life in our own locations, in our own Indian context, or we look at lives in the advanced, more developed worlds of the West, we find that everyone, each individual and everyone is confronting stress. So yoga, the ancient Indian art and science of a complete health system, is the one-way ticket to this ancient Indian art and science of health is through yoga, which teaches us how to manage our stress. So stress management and the management of the individual mind, all of this is very usefully available to us through the practice and the traditions of yoga. The third is the other form of sustainable living, which is how the entire world can belong in as one unit, can behave as one unit. And we have the popular and the very famous Sanskrit phrase, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. Now, this is a maxim, which is also an ancient adage, real wisdom that comes out, is gleaned from our ancient Shastras. So Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, teaches us another way of approaching our knowledge systems, whether we are talking about the traditional sciences, whether we are talking about inventions, whether we are talking about performance and literatures and cultures, whether we are talking about the idea of being in nature, whether we are talking about mathematical and astronomical knowledge, whether we are talking about the knowledge that we have of our elements, you see, of metallurgy and of our elements. This brings us to a very important perspective of belonging to the world as one family. And this is an adage which is now pleasantly, I think many of us would be surprised to know that Vasudeva Kutumbakam has become also a maxim adopted by several world systems of knowledge. In fact, the European Association of Asian Studies, South Asian Studies, talks about Vasudeva Kutumbakam actually integrating classical European philosophy with the Indian philosophical traditions and making it an integrated, one inclusive world. So whether we are talking about, very clearly, whether we are talking about the idea of our recent environmental concern of preserving what is the world, what is a planet which is shrinking, a planet which is getting warmer, a planet that needs much more conservation and preservation, allows this principle to gain so much more significance, that you can live in a world by sustaining other living practices, okay, and by promoting the idea that the world, and when we say the world, you see, one is removing completely in the Indian system, one completely removes the categories of world organisms and creatures. It is a planet, it is a living planet, it is a world which belongs as one family. So there is no distinction between higher systems of creatures or higher organisms and lower organisms. It is one family, each is dependent on the other. And to that extent, I think you see a lot of Indian art in which you see the tree of life. The tree becomes our source of sustenance, but the tree also adds to various other philosophical insights. The roots, the branches, the trees, the leaves, the buds, the flowers, all of this embracing that one holistic idea of belonging in one family, one common system, which is very important for our natural resource conservation, and the idea that we belong in an environment which constantly needs caring, which constantly needs preserving and nurturing. And then spiritual growth. I think it is important to remember that we are also talking about the Vedas and the Vedanta, the Vedas from which the philosophy of the Vedanta is drawn. All the ancient treatises, the Vedas that we have learned from, that we invoke when we think about our old ancient priests and ancient spiritual gurus. These are all grounded in the Vedas, which are the classic texts of Indian transcendentalist thought, Indian philosophy, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and what is actually meaning and purpose of life. These are all crucial and critical in a world where each individual is seeking a deeper fulfillment. So that spiritual growth forms the other axis of this very important IKS that we need to adopt into our present systems of education. And then innovation. So in the present time, innovation, which is something that we are all fixed onto, whether it is Elon Musk's SpaceX or the neural order of the mind, whether it is moving on to a different planetary system. Innovation is constantly about new advancements in whether it is mathematics, whether astronomy, metallurgy, concepts like zero. Imagine that we would never have been there had we not had the system, the decimal system, the trigonometry, which all originate from ancient Greek thought and innovative learning. And these continue to play a very pivotal role in contemporary science and technology. So whether it is mathematics, astronomy, the elements, we are constantly practicing that old value system that was launched, that was advanced by our innovative treatises, our own thought processes in mathematics, astronomy, the elements, the chemical elements that surround us. All of this goes back to the great Indian thought. Can I have the next slide, please? Slide 5. Are you showing slide 5? Yes. So the great Indian tradition. Now what does this great Indian tradition bring together? You can see that the great Indian tradition is seen in a circular, in a round sort of, end-to-end, continuous kind of process of thought. So what are these processes of thought? What are these aspects that the great Indian tradition seems to bring together as a system on which all lives are predicated? So health and well-being, something that we have already talked about. Health and wellness, very important. But at the same time, we have traditional knowledge systems in mathematics. We have seen that without the mathematical systems that we innovated in the ancient, thousands of years ago, we would not have reached this junction in our contemporary world. Then we have the traditional medical system, the medicines of yoga and Vedas, which I just talked about. But without a very important sense of art, culture, and traditional value system, we would not have been able to appreciate the traditional knowledge that allows us new thoughts and new innovations in medicine and in other forms of health and well-being. So our models of looking at education are always balanced out by these new and innovative practices, are balanced out by what we have in our systems of art and culture and in our traditional practices. I'll break them down further. And then you have the ancient designs and structures, the ancient architecture that we have. Why is ancient archaeology so important? In the inaugural moments of the valedictory session, you also mentioned, one of the speakers mentioned our ancient Ahom archaeology. I think the Vice Principal mentioned. So the Ahom archaeology, which now is being celebrated as one of the greatest moments, feats of archaeological wonder, which we celebrate through the Ahom, the royal moidams of Guwahati, the moidam, the famous burial mounds of the royal moidams of the Ahom, have now entered the UNESCO Heritage Album. And this heritaging of architecture, archaeology, also acknowledges this deep scientific, you see, values that the Indian knowledge system had been trained in. Otherwise, how would you have even imagined a system like the Mota? How would you have had those ancient sites which have been able to preserve, peoples for thousands of years now? Also, it brings to my mind the archaeological genius of our stupas, in Nalanda, the Buddhist tradition of having the stupas. So we have not just evolved like that. We have had thousands of centuries, hundreds of centuries behind us, thousands of years going back into previous millennials, in which we have been able to absorb, through which we have been able to absorb our great feats of structure, design. And today, a lot of scientific design practices are actually borrowed from those old ancient wisdoms, like astronomy, the other plank that we have in this, tight, structured Indian traditional system, value system. You have astronomy, without which, of course, the great astronomical feats of the Indian way of life, these astronomers, the great astronomical feats that we hark back to, these have been for us ways of looking, these are today ways of looking back into the past, of understanding the mystical and the mysterious ways of looking into our space, into our planetary systems, and of understanding ways that we were not earlier familiar with. And all of this coalescing into one consciousness model of Indian knowledge system. So the entire circle is bound together, this great knowledge system is bound together by consciousness, by developing that consciousness of being Indian, of living in an Indian way of life, of understanding what our Indian ethos, our value systems, our traditional knowledges, our pundits have taught us. Can you take us to slide 6, please? So slide 6, then, and I am also keen, as I keep talking and as I am expanding this idea of knowledge system, I also wish to bring you to the idea of the boundaries of knowledge. So while we talk about so many multidimensional aspects of knowledge, the boundaries of knowledge are also available through our own social means, our own societal systems, and our own approaches, which allow us to be the way we are, or teach us sometimes not to be the way we are. So if you go back, this picture is this very ancient depiction of from the Brihadaranyaka, from the Upanishads, and I want you to concentrate on that graphic there. I think it's gone off. Yeah, on the graphic where you see this is a small narration from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is about Gargi and her male colleagues. So Gargi was this very great woman of wisdom, and in this great halls of debate, Gargi had debated with other men on many epistemological, philosophical questions. And here in this yagya, this great yagya which is happening in the kingdom of Mithila, King Janak, and this is recorded in the Upanishad. Gargi is sitting, opposite her male, famous pundits, and Yagyakarya. So Yagyakarya is sitting with Gargi, and Gargi is answering question after question. I think I mentioned this the last time that I addressed the IQAC center. And Gargi is fascinating because her knowledge knows no limits. She has been, answering every problem, solving every problem. And in the end, Gargi is told that if you don't stop, we will sever your head, separate your head from your body. So don't ask any more questions. So the idea, this brings us to the idea of the famous polemics of Indian thought, that Indian philosophical systems are completely, steered through great dialectics, through a process of debating, the great debate today which we are losing. Many of us have lost the idea of debating. We cannot have natural worlds. We must have points of view. We must have multidimensional points of view. We must be able to see the knowledge that the other brings. So I think this is a very wonderful depiction of how Gargi and being female, in that ancient world, we're talking about 4,000 years ago, where Gargi is able to establish her point of view in a world in which she's a peripheral figure almost. There must be just a handful of women pundits at that time. So the Indian knowledge system also teaches us, therefore, metaphorically, therefore, to address the concerns of the others. What
Excuse
are
me,
the others
ma'am.
saying? Yes?
Sorry to intrude, ma'am. But before we go further on, I would like to ask, isn't that the same Upanishad that T.S. Eliot referred to towards the end
Exactly.
of The Wasteland?
Exactly.
Datta
It's
Deyadvam Damyata. Yeah.
Datta Damyata. Yes.
Yeah.
Apsadaya
Thank-
Vadhyam. The
Yes.
Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is a very famous treatise, and therefore, can you imagine the great doyen of West? I'm glad you brought that up. The great doyen of Western poetics. I mean, who else than T.S. Eliot, who wrote his most memorable Wasteland. The Wasteland, actually, the last quartet, the last section, the fifth section of the Wasteland, quotes the Brihadaranyaka. It is this whole philosophy of ancient
Yes.
Indian wisdom that becomes so critical to Western systems of knowledge. You see, it's established that you are not just gleaning from your own knowledge system, but you have to borrow. And we're talking about 100 years ago. Eliot said this in 1922. And we are 100 years from Eliot when this knowledge system has already been acknowledged as superior, as scientific, and as, of course, as very, very philosophical. Thank you. Can you take me, Jinto, to the next slide? I'm coming to the end of my lecture. Can I have the next slide? Yes. So just to give you another glimpse of our wisdoms and our continuous tradition of Indian knowledge systems, Kautilya's Arthashastra, Manu Smriti, these are the famous, traversing so many centuries of knowledge. It draws our attention to that kind of knowledge, the setting up of laws, Manusmriti of the 2nd century BCE or to the 2nd century AD. The time is, of course, always speculative here. These are ancient histories. So the laws of Manusmriti, and its gendered concerns continue to be debated until the present time. Whether Manusmriti, which gave us our legal systems, which became one of the first, also the first Sanskrit text to be translated into English. Remember, the original Sanskrit book was never found. Manusmriti was found through, its Manusmriti became its the first Sanskrit text to be translated by Sir William Jones. And it was used to also construct the Hindu law code. For example, the East India Company, the East India Company, which came into our land and administered our Indian, country, our Indian people. It used the Hindu code. It actually constructed the Hindu code out of the Manusmriti. So that's very interesting, a Western knowledge system, which at one point of time has Lord Macaulay talking about our ancient Indian treatises that can be stacked together in one shelf of the British Museum and Library. The same British people adopting our ancient texts in order to refashion the Hindu law code. which continued for so long in our legal system. Kautilya's Arthashastra, I mean, nothing can be said that is adequate about Arthashastra, the great Indian treatise on statecraft, on politics, on economic policy, on military strategy. All of this continued to be, invoked. And of course, the Arthashastra, while it is acknowledged that it is Kautilya's work, it has also been said, research has also said that it could be a compilation of various authors over the centuries, which started from probably the 2nd century BCE to the 1st century AD. Then you also have the Natya Shastra in the arts and in culture. You have the Natya Shastra, which is 200 BCE to around 200 CE, understood today as the great Indian encyclopedia of arts, one which has influenced our dance, classical dance systems, our music, and our literary traditions of India. And it's most notable for literature students like me and several others who are here today. It's also notable for its aesthetic rasa, the rasa theory that asserts that, entertainment is the desired effect of performance arts, but entertainment is not the primary goal. The primary goal is to transport the individual in the audience to another form, another very higher form of reality, which is wonder, which is full of mystical wonder and the essence of one's consciousness, which then actually brings us back to the spiritual and moral questions that our wisdoms have proclaimed and have advanced for a very long time. So these were just 3 kind of examples of our continuous tradition from where we constantly derive our own wisdoms. The next slide, please, Tinto. And then I just wanted to connect, because this was always occurring in my mind, even as I was thinking, and I was wondering how to talk about Indian knowledge system in a kind of overarching manner, but also of bringing together the two worlds. So in this graphic, I have placed the famous painting by Raphael, the great Renaissance painter Raphael, who paints the School of Athens on the one hand. Okay, look at the School of Athens. The 2 central characters are Aristotle and Plato, and there is Socrates too. And there is a host of great philosophers, thinkers, great scientists, great polemicists who are all here, sitting here in the classical school of Athens. But look at the date. We are talking about something around the 16th century. Okay, we are looking at the Renaissance art, and he is talking about the Renaissance artist draws this, of course, invoking the ancient Grecians and the Romans and the noble thinkers in this famous school, in this famous painting called the School of Athens. Compare it to what we have now. This is a great hall. Look at, you cannot miss the architecture, the wonder, the regalia, and the absolute symmetry of that beautiful hall in which these philosophers are gathered. And then look at our ancient pedagogical environment. There is this huge tree, okay, the vriksh, the great vriksh, the tree of life as it were, under which sits a lone guru and his sishya, embracing what is called the Guru Shishya Parampara. How is the Guru Shishya Parampara being conducted? How is it evolving? It is out there, under the skies and under the shade of the, spreading tree. So there is a huge contrast in these 2 wisdoms, the wisdom of the world, as I'm calling it, the Western world, so to speak, and our own Indian way. But in many senses, it is possible to bring together, integrate the world and our Indian way through the many different aspects that I have already taken us through in this lecture. So look at how the Guru Shishya Parampara actually is what allows the School of Athens to also, to also model itself on. Because as you have a guru here, you also have a guru there. There is the great Plato and the great Aristotle, the gurus, around whom are all these disciples in the School of Athens. Okay? So the same world, the one world, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and different ways of learning, but finally in the end integrating into one whole. And the next slide. Yes, these are the literatures that endure. I'm looking at the Puranas, the Panchatantra, the Mahabharata, and the Ramayana. Now, although we have Valmiki's Ramayana here, it's possible also to talk about the many Ramayanas that exist. The Madhav Kandali's Ramayana, you have the Bodo Ramayana, you have the Ramayana, which is the Ramayana of the Thais, of the Thai people. You see the ancient royal Thai dynasty, which also had its own Ramayana. So are Indian Puranas giving way to different forms and versions of thinking philosophically and probably thinking in a way which brings together knowledge from worlds of, the divines, but also religious and spiritual texts. So the Mahabharata, the Panchatantra evokes Aesop's fable in some ways, but remember the Panchatantra far, 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 predates far back from the Aesop's fable. So you have a Panchatantra, which was written thousands of years ago, and then you have hundreds of years ago, and then you have an Aesop's fable, which is much more recent in the history of humanity. The Puranas, and of course, the old Puranas from which endure into the present, from where we continue to glean our knowledge systems, and we have enduring debates over these knowledge systems. The next one, please. Okay. The next slide, please. I am concluding. I think we've come to the last slide, and I want to bring together all of the concerns that I tried to advance. I understand that, of course, Jintu? Hello? Yes? Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So I will conclude. I'm almost at the end now. So we want to bring back IKS as to how it has been relevant for us in a world which obviously is multidimensional. It offers so many numerous global challenges to us and solutions to those challenges, whether it was Pascal's triangles or whether it was the binary mathematical principle, the algorithms, these are all present in the IKS system, exposing students, therefore, and academics to both the traditional and the contemporary concepts. Brings us with an easy kind of integration and alignment with alignment to the cultural heritages that we have been sustained by, constantly broadening our intellectual horizons, and also allowing, the growth, also allowing the growth of our confidence and of our rootedness. For example, Lord Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, I think all of us know this, had already told Arjun, when Arjun was in that famous moment of debate on whether he should go and fight his own brothers, the Kauravas. And then to Arjuna, I think Krishna made that famous statement where he said that knowledge itself is the most profound purifier and the liberator. So it is without knowledge, I don't think one can find self-realization. So knowledge itself is at the root of the purification of the self. And by that, we are not talking about Brahminical ways of purifying ourselves. We're talking about purifying the self by constantly being in debate, by constantly learning to realize the self and thereby liberating the self. So this robust, I think, foundation that the IKS has laid down will be able to provide some of the finest teaching philosophies in both the sciences and the arts, in learning to share our rich heritage with the traditional wisdoms of India, in being able to incorporate tribal, indigenous, traditional learning methods. So whether it was said by a Brahmin or it was said by, a tribal, indigenous person, these have been for us are sources of our traditional learning material, our textbooks, and they encompass diverse fields. So therefore, today IKS, by way of what are the outcomes? It has boosted tourism. It has made India a site of great wonder for its diversity, its culture, its traditional, polyvalence. There is so much of plurality in our country. The archaeological sites, the heritages, the sculpture, the literatures. And once we recognize this great body of knowledge, it's possible that IKS penetrates every course, ensuring that students across subjects can gain exposure, continuous knowledge, and exposure to our ancient wisdoms. So I think at the end of this 2-week course, not only have you been able to understand that we belong to this very, very rich, diverse, traditional world of knowledge and wisdom, but the fact that it is so easy, that it is so absolutely meaningful to integrate what we have learned and what we can learn from our knowledge systems, and then integrate them to the modern formulations of the modern world. I think everything goes back to that past, and without which we cannot be in the futures that we imagine. Thank you very much. I would be happy to answer questions if there are any questions. Yes, I've come to the end of this talk.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a very enlightening session for our participants and for us too. Thank you for giving us your valuable time and this valuable insights on IKS. Thank you again, ma'am. Today is the last session of our course. We'd also like to hear from some of our participants. And if any of the participants would like to share their experiences in this course. If anyone Govinda Bhattacharya, if we can hear from you. Or if anyone has any question, then can ask, ma'am.
If no one else is asking, may I? It's a thought and a question. Okay, someone else is. That's fine.
I think
May I?
Zia Shah has raised a hand. Zia Shah, I can see in the question box.
Jyotirmoy Joshi, are you asking something?
I was, but I think Zia wants to ask first. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you very
Jiasa,
much.
if you...
Thank you.
Jiasa, if you have any question, you can ask, ma'am. Okay, Jyotirmoy, you can ask, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. I don't know how to put it eloquently, but it's not a question. It's a question and also a thought. I don't know if many would relate this thought of mine, but don't you believe that, ma'am, rather than drawing a contrast between Indian knowledge systems and Western knowledge systems, the latter of which, of course, has been seminal to humanities advancements in medicine, engineering, space exploration, and other fields. Should we not instead focus on the contrast between modern Indians and the ancient Indians responsible for these knowledge systems? The ancient Indians who espoused philosophies such as, we referred to it a bit, such as pantheism. It had a profound influence on later thinkers, including figures like H.T. Thoreau. Would it not be
Yeah.
fair to argue, yeah, would it not be fair to argue that modern Indians are perhaps more distant from their ancestral way of life than any other people or culture? The extent of, for example, and this pains me really because the extent of environmental degradation in India today is among the worst globally, even surpassing that of China, the so-called leading industrial capital of the world, which has nonetheless managed to preserve much of its ancient forests. You know, the forests that we see in Kung Fu Panda, for example, they're still there towards the northeast of China. So at present, and this is my concern, I don't know if many would share this concern of mine, but this is my concern. At present, the concept of the Indian knowledge system is often invoked to glorify a distant past, which is no bad thing. Yes, it's for its own sake, it's amazing. It's used to glorify a distant past and fuel a form of narrow-minded nationalism. You know, the kind of nationalism that was criticized by Rabindranath Tagore in his famous essay on nationalism. And it is not,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is not being thoughtfully adapted. The ancient wisdom is not being thoughtfully adapted to actually improve the way of life of modern Indians. So that is my
Okay.
concern and question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very good meditation on why our Indian knowledge system and bringing back our Indian knowledge system into our models of education of the present needs to be formulated in a very sensitive and responsible manner, such that we are not, as you said rightfully, we are not simply doing a West versus us. Certainly, and I've tried to show how we are actually more integrated than separate, but also to establish why we have not been able to bring out the advantages and invoke all those very, very rich and very thoughtful ways of even living with our environment, being ecological beings, so to speak, and learning from the wisdoms of the past and integrating them into our present systems, which is why there was one area which I actually wanted to talk about, but since I didn't have enough time, was the oral traditions, that are part of this knowledge system, the oral traditions, much of which still gets promoted via community knowledge, bodies of knowledge, or via ethnographies that researchers conduct,
Hi, hi.
or
Hello.
via old, yes, or via
Yes, ma'am.
old ways of learning. I wanted to suggest that these oral forms of wisdom, indigenous knowledge systems, all of these continue to be practiced by communities which modern academia often has not acknowledged. It's only now that we are beginning to see that, oh, we must learn to live. If we are talking about the environment, we must learn to live, and learn from what people close to the soil are talking about. Why the textbooks are not enough, why ethnographic studies are important, why going to communities are equally important. So I think your question brings us to dwell on this slightly problematic content of IKS, which can be raised to its optimal value, to its optimal use and meaning, if we begin to see that modern Indian knowledge systems need to borrow from them and need to integrate them into their ideas of being, advanced, educated, literate, and emancipated people. So it's not enough to be just digitally knowledgeable or to be very, very technologically savvy, but also to understand what are these core values, value systems that were generated by people who have for a long time lived close to the earth, who have been very close to nature. Your concern was environmental, therefore I'm dwelling on this. But there are many other ways of looking at why we need to understand what we do and how we are from going to the communities, from going to oral knowledge community systems or forms of knowledge systems which are not available to us in our modern world. And we need to understand how we need to reawaken and bring them back, integrate them um, into our present contemporary educational system. I think I saw Dr. Unmilan Kolita's, did he have a question?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Jyotirmoy. I hope I answered your question.
You did, ma'am, beautifully. Thank you, ma'am.
Can we have, did I see Unmilan Kolita? I think I just saw him. Did you have a question? Else, if there are no questions, then I will take leave.
Some of the participants have question, ma'am. There is one question.
Can I see it in the chat box then?
Deepu Bosumagari.
I don't see too many questions. I see a lot of comments.
He has asked how important is oral tradition in safeguarding tribal. How can it be protected in the modern context?
Whose question is that?
Deepu Basumatari.
Oh, it's not Deepu Basumatari. Yes. Yes, I can see that. I can see that. Okay. How useful is oral? Can you repeat it? I don't see it here. I can see a long acknowledgement.
How important is oral tradition
question
in safeguarding the tribal wisdom, and how can it be protected in the modern context?
Yeah. So as I had said, as in my response to Jyotirmoy Joshi, I did mention oral traditions, and we hadn't talked about oral traditions a lot in this very small summary. See, oral traditions and our oral and indigenous knowledge systems, these have not been acknowledged in a formal way. We need to institutionalize oral traditions, and we need to also formally acknowledge and integrate indigenous knowledge systems into our textbooks, into our syllabi, we have done that, for example, in literature. I'm trying to do that in Cotton University by bringing, indigenous tribal literatures into folk and tribal literatures into our curriculum, so that we understand what is not formal, what is this informal way of teaching. And pedagogy must, shake itself a little. We have sometimes inflexible pedagogical methods. I think IKS allows us to loosen that. And I think the tribal wisdom that you're talking about, Deepu Basumatari, one acknowledges this tribal wisdom. We see it a lot in our literatures, which we read. In the arts and the humanities, this tribal wisdom is greatly acknowledged. I hope it extends also to the sciences and to the physical and material sciences, in which one is also looking at how tribals have dealt with how tribal societies have dealt with different kinds of problems that confront our everyday world, including, as Jyotirmoy pointed out, the very important environmental concern, which I think is dealt with beautifully by indigenous populations and tribal societies. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We would also like to hear from some of our students about their experience. I'd like to request our student, Supriya Sharma, to share her experience after joining this course. Supriya Sharma, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Says.
Jintu, is it possible that I exit in 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure,
Can I?
Sure,
Because I have something waiting at the university. Yeah. So, but thank you very much for having me. And I really enjoyed this last bit as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I will listen to Supriya Sharma and exit. Thank you for
Okay.
having me, Jintu, and thank you to IKS Center, Handique Girls College, for inviting me to address your students.
Supriya, you can share your experience.
Okay, ma'am. First of all, thank you, ma'am. It's our immense pleasure to have you, ma'am. And it was a very impressive session. We'll learn a lot from it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Supriya. We would also like to have some feedback from other participants. There is one question from Rudrakshi Paul. Considering the lack of preservation in some IKS tradition, how can we systematically recover lost knowledge, and what technologies or methodologies might help in this effort?
Where is the, yeah. Considering the lack of preservation in some IKS traditions, how can we systematically recover lost knowledge, and what technologies or methodologies? Yeah, this is where I think we need both our sciences and our traditional, you see, bodies of preserving both documents and material cultures, you know, by way of preserving documents, art, pieces of craft, all of which, you know, in the IKS tradition, if we go back to the value of having old texts and old material for study, I think for this we will need to develop a more scientific approach as to how lost transcripts can be recovered, how damaged artifacts can be restored. In Jadavpur University, there is a documentation center in which old transcripts, old texts, handicrafts are being restored and are being preserved. So I think this preservative instinct is something we all need to develop. The fact that we all need to preserve our knowledge, bodies of knowledge, and our vast repositories. So in order to do this, I think we also, each educational center for IKS or higher education institutions by themselves need to have repositories where old documents, old texts, old artifacts, and other important traditions are systematically restored, recovered, restored, and then preserved. I think one will have to propose this also to UGC perhaps, and later to other higher education bodies that take over the UGC, as to having a pedagogy of methodology and technology in order to restore and to recover our IKS traditions. That was an interesting question, Rudrakshi, and might lead us to policy formulation. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I will exit because there is a question, but I have to leave.
Okay, Diganta Das, you have
question?
raised your hand. Would you like to share something?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. So, dear organizers and resource persons, uh, thank you for organizing the certificate course on Indian knowledge system. Thank you to IQAC, Handique Girls College, for organizing such a integrating course. It was a great learning experience, and I appreciate the efforts taken to bring together experts from across India. I'm grateful for the knowledge shared by professors from Banaras Hindu University, Guwahati University, Cotton University, and Rajiv Gandhi University. This course was informative and engaging. Thank you again for your efforts. And uh, this is the end of this course, and I really enjoyed all the sessions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your valuable feedback. Now I think we can wind up. Before winding up, our convener, Dr. Gayatri Sharma ma'am, will share a few words with you all.
सर्वेभ्यः सर्वाभ्यः च नमो नमः। गीतायाम् उच्यते न हि ज्ञानेन more pure than. Come to the close of the certificate on Indian knowledge system. On behalf of IQAC Center, Handique Girls College, it gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to the August gathering. My thanks goes to our principal, sir, Dr. Ranjit Sharma, for cooperating in conducting this certificate course. I also take immense pleasure in extending my sincere thanks to Dr. Puri Hilberdari, ma'am, the IQAC convener, who had highlighted the directions for us at every step. Then I extend my heartiest thanks to Dr. Rakhee Moral, ma'am, the speaker of the valedictory session, for her presence and insightful speech. I'm happy to extend my sincere thanks to all the 15 resource persons who delivered wonderful lectures and encompassing different fields of engineering. Dr. Sushil, Dr. Madhurima Hazarika, Dr. Dr. Chandana Sharma, Dr. J.B. Komoreria, Dr. Akhtar Hussain, Dr. Guruji Goswami, Dr. Vivek Chaudhary, Dr. Jamuna Dini, and again Jintu Thakuria. Must I mention deep sense of appreciation for IQAC, Dr. Sadiqul, Dr. Avini, Dr. Meenakshi, Dr. Rajashri, Dr. Mamoni, Dr. Jintu Thakuria. I thank them all. Everybody has successfully completed the examination, but it will take 10 weeks to provide you with the certificates. And at last, I request all of you to send papers for our e-journal and for your success in your in future. And I conclude my speech with this.
Thank you, Dr. Gayatri Sharma ma'am. And at the end, thanks to all of you for being with us for this 1 month long journey on IKS. And we hope we will again get connected in different works, academic works, including we are also coming out with our e-journal, which will be peer reviewed, which will be the first issue is going to be published. And we hope all of you will submit quality papers. Also, as IQAC coordinator ma'am has today announced, we are going to organize an international conference on Indian knowledge system, probably in October. We hope this conference will be in hybrid mode again. So at your convenience, we'd be very happy if you come and come to our college and present your paper. Or if it is not possible for you, you can also submit your paper for online presentation. At your convenience, you can present. So we hope all of you will present your quality papers in our conference. And all of you have done very good in the final assessment, but we will need some time for internal evaluation to check your attendance and also the research proposal evaluation. So we will need at least 10 days to disburse your certificates through mail. Okay, so here we wind up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.